The Pillars of Creation are Titan artifacts that serve as boosters to their wielders, gifted to the Keepers during the Ordering of Azeroth. During the War of the Ancients, while the primary Legion portal was focused at the Well of Eternity, demon forces attempted to open a second portal at the Temple of Elune. The Grand Magistrix Elisande and her loyal Highborn opposed Queen Ashara and used the pillars to close and seal the temple, preventing the second front from ever opening. Some years ago, the Guardian Aegwin fought and defeated the Avatar of Sargeras, which would eventually lead to his essence inhabiting Medivh and causing the First and Second Wars, but in the Avatar's defeat, Aegwin locked its demonic corpse within the Temple of Elune, redubbing it the Tomb of Sargeras. The Avatar would spend years festering within, fell power slowly spreading until Gul'dan arrived and, you know what happened there. This left the leaders with a strategy. If they could recover the Pillars of Creation, they could use them to once again place a seal upon the temple-turned-tomb and shut down the Fellstorm. Without that direct pipeline to Argus, the Legion invasion would effectively cease. Thus did the leaders spread out across the Broken Isles in search of Titan artifacts. At the same time, some seeds had finally started sprouting. Sylvanas Windrunner had personally journeyed to Stormheim, seeking an artifact of domination to control the Valkyr, ostensibly to make more Forsaken, though recent events cast some doubt on this. By this point, King Greymane was, let's be honest, not thinking straight. Not to blame him. The loss of son, of kingdom, of king, it does things to you. So Greymane rallied those like-minded of Alliance military, survivors of Forsaken atrocities or victims of Garrosh's policies, and set out to kill Sylvanas and as many Horde as they could. This led to a bloody confrontation between the two off the shores of Stormheim, which left many dead on both sides, the Alliance gunship totaled, and the survivors struggling with the wreckage. Meanwhile, the leaders continued attempting to save the entire world from their actual enemy. They stumbled into an avatar of Odin, who was more than willing to allow them to take his pillar, the Aegis of Agrimar, but Odin, like most Titanforged, was a stickler for doing things in an orderly fashion. So the leaders had to go through the same trials and tasks every other petitioner did. Among these petitioners was Skovold, ruler of the Tidescorn tribe of Vrykul. As per Gul'dan's idiom, the Orc Warlock had not been idle, and was busily recruiting further numbers to Legion cause. The Tidescorn were easy converts. After all, they followed the teachings of Odin, who advocated combat, glory, and death. You do the math. Skovold cheated, often, in his trials, bypassing obstacles rather than overcoming them and often sabotaging them so no one else could compete. It is a direct result of his meddling that the leaders ended up fighting Ymron, the one-time king of the Vrykul and Northrend. Ymron was damned by his association with the Second Lich King and shunned by Odin, and so instead struck a bargain with the cruel Helia. That didn't go the way he wanted.
I will bite your head down your throat, you...
Helia was not idle in this, and sent her ship, the Naglfar, to imprison and enslave the leaders. Not that this held them for very long. The group fought through the ship to the helmsman Harberon. Harberon's an interesting one. He was a Constellar, like Algalon back in Ulduar. How Helia got her hooks into one of them is unknown, however. At the end, the group faced Helia. The once queen of the Valkyr was furious with them and their intrusion, demanding of them and combating them directly. Sadly for her, Helia made a bargain, and unbeknownst to her, had to abide by it. As the leaders escaped Helheim, Sylvanas and Greymane continued their hunt for one another, loyalists slaughtering each other as they went. In the end, Sylvanas claimed her artifact from Helia, and sought to use it against the Valkyr, only for Greymane to smash the thing, wounding Sylvanas and wounded in return. Meanwhile, the leaders had managed to catch up to Skovold and stopped his assault upon the Gates of Valor, but Skovold himself escaped into the Halls of Valor, forcing the leaders to pursue. This is actually fortunate, as not only did they need to complete their trials to claim the Aegis, but Odin had another task for him, and this one didn't involve making him a sandwich. But for now, trials. First up was Heimdall, gatekeeper of the halls, chiseled from granite and commanding the local storm drakes in his charge. With Heimdall brushed aside, they had to take on Herja, the shield maiden recently advanced to Valkyr status, favored of her clan. They also had to take on Fenrir, the master of the fields of the Eternal Hunt and a favorite companion of Odin. There were a few final challenges for the leaders, some Vrykul kings of old, but as the leaders took possession of the Aegis, Skovald charged in, declaring he had completed the trials and deserved it instead. Sadly for him, Odin was a stickler for the rules, and since the leaders got there first, his protest came too late. Furious, Skovald sought to claim the Aegis by force, which of course went about as you'd expect it to. With trials settled and prize claimed, it was time for Odin's task. He wanted to finally be free of his imprisonment, to shut down Helheim and destroy the sea witch Helya. But, being Titan-forged, Odin had to follow his methods and procedures, so first the group had to best him in combat. Odin was a keeper, but by now defeating keepers was old hat to this group. Satisfied at their prowess, Odin sent the troops back down to Helheim, where they had to contend with Gwarm, Helya's personal hellhound. There's really a thing for hounds this time around, isn't there? Anyways, poor Gwarm was killed, leaving Helya herself. This time the leaders had her cornered and clearly had no intention of retreating. Helya was unimpressed. In fact, for her, this was the perfect opportunity to enslave powerful fighters and take them for her Kvaldir. This didn't go quite as she expected. With Helya's death, the seal on Skyhold was broken, and Odin wasted no time in enjoying his newfound freedom. With the Keeper recruited, Helya removed from the board, and one of the pillars obtained, it was time to check in on some of the other leaders' adventures in adjacent territories.